As Republicans play politics with public health, Democrats continue to lead with compassion and science. Speaker Nancy Pelosi steps up with a powerful message about responsibility, recovery, and protecting the American people as the U.S. reaches 1 million COVID-19 deaths. Take a moment and listen for yourself.
Morning. Not such a good morning in that today on the steps of the Capitol, we will be observing the 1 millionth death from COVID. My understanding is the president is lowering flags at half-staff. We will have, sadly, our regular coming together in prayer and song. 1 million people have died. It's such a terrible toll. And when you think of what it means in the lives of those families. So we send, of course, our condolences to the families, the children, the siblings, the friends, the colleagues, the spouses of those lost. The heartbreak continues. All the more reason why we must pass the COVID legislation so we can purchase vaccines, provide testing and treatments to prevent the outbreak from various other variants that may come along, and deaths. Today, as a source of pride to it, Tuesday was a source of pride to it because that is when we passed the $40 billion legislation for our assistance in military, humanitarian, and economic assistance to the people of Ukraine. As you know, I was there recently with a very distinguished delegation. The meeting started by the president thanking our president and the American people for the support to Ukraine as they fight for democracy in their country. And it is a fight for democracy globally. Excuse me. The president was most appreciative, but also had some other requests in terms of weapons, in terms of humanitarian and economic assistance. That's what we have largely in this legislation, which should be coming up in the floor in the Senate anytime, and we'll be able to pass the bill and send it to the president. We think it's a very complete piece of legislation. And I salute our Appropriations Committee Chair, Rosa DeLauro, in bipartisan way, House and Senate coming together on the bill. We're very pleased that we had about an 80% bipartisan bill on the House floor for this, so it is bringing us together. Then again, in addition, as we support the fight for democracy against dictatorship, we also salute the bipartisan support we've had for the Lend-Lease bill, which the president signed, the seize and freeze legislation, which is so important in terms of using Russian assets to rebuild Ukraine. And again, we just had on Tuesday also a meeting of the Munich Security Conference, one part of it here in the Capitol, where we saw the unity of the European countries around this issue. And it really goes beyond European countries. Next week on the floor of the House, we will have another piece of our lowering costs for the American people legislation. First, House Democrats led by Congresswoman Schreier and Congresswoman Porter introduced the Consumer Fuel Price Gouging Prevention Act. While families are struggling to pay higher prices at the pump, oil and gas companies are recording record profits, with 7 largest oil companies announcing buybacks that could total $41 billion this year alone. Again and again, we see gas prices rise, sometimes when the cost of oil drops, oil prices drop, and price gouging needs to be stopped. This is a major exploitation of the consumer because this is a product the consumer must have. Again, the Putin tax hike at the pump is a part of this, and you would think that the oil companies would compensate for that rather than exploit the opportunity that it So, and this bill, what this bill does, price gouging needs to be addressed, including new tools at the FTC to address those abuses. Our bill enables the president to issue an energy emergency declaration, making it unlawful to increase gas and home energy prices in an exploitive and excessive way, which is part of the business plan of these companies. Right now, as we gather here, the Competes Act is having, the conference committee is having its first meeting. I think it's on station 83, channel 83 for anyone who has channel 83 in their world. And we are focused on sending this cost-cutting legislation, Make It in America, to the president as soon as we can. Competes is cost-lowering anti-inflation bill. We are so dependent on foreign products, factors of production, to do our own manufacturing, that it increased cost. So this has $52 billion in the Competes Act for chips. We've had this conversation before. 1,000 chips in a car, 2,000 in an electric car. In order to continue manufacturing cars, we need to have more chips. We need to be self-sufficient, independent, make it in America with the chips. $45 billion supply, and that's semiconductors as well. $45 billion to address supply chain issues. The less product, the higher the less supply, the higher the cost. So we want to increase supply in the supply chain to lower costs for the American people. And again, it bolsters research and education and strengthening apprenticeship programs and the rest. Again, strengthening America's U.S. global economic leadership. 134 industry groups, some of which have never been on the same side of us in many of these bills. Our office will tweet you their contact, but this is pages and pages and pages of organizations that support the bill. By and large, it is bipartisan. We do have some differences, which we will reconcile in the conference committee. So we're very excited about that. As a piece of it, I talked about workforce development and the rest. Next week, we'll also have the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which more specifically goes to the point that President Biden has, under his leadership, a record of 8.3 million jobs are created. But in March, it was said that 11.5 job positions were open. This legislation will connect workers to jobs at lower cost, increase paychecks, and help small businesses in this economy. So again, lower prices for all Americans at the pump, at the kitchen table, and across the board. It's great sadness always to talk about Roe v. Wade and this draft decision is, how harmful it is, how dangerous it is for women and families across the country. Yesterday, Senate Republicans lined up in lockstep behind Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump to vote to rip away the constitutional right to health freedom from American women across the country. Across the country. Every day, Republicans show their intention to punish and control women's most personal health reproductive decisions. The GOP-appointed Supreme Court put there for the purpose. You know, in our country, we have always had, because of the brilliance and genius of our Constitution, an expansion of freedom. With this possible, or the suggested draft of it, would be the first time a court has expanded freedom and then contracted it in a very, very dangerous way. Republicans in Congress across the nation are mobilizing around a dangerous extremist agenda to criminalize all forms of reproductive health, including in vitro fertilization, post-miscarriage care, contraception. Make no mistake, once Republicans shred their law, they have shredded any commitment to precedent, despite saying that they support precedent. and privacy, which is fundamental, by saying certain things are not specifically mentioned in the Constitution. Well, that was the beauty of the Constitution, that it gave the opportunity to further increase our decision-making. As Republicans seek to criminalize women's health and reproductive freedom, Democrats are fighting to defend Roe v. Wade and our fundamental constitutional rights. Tomorrow morning, House Democrats will gather on the steps of the Capitol across the street from the Supreme Court to shine a light on this life and death threat. And over the weekend, Americans across the country will lead days of action and marching, making their voices heard. Democrats stand with America's women in fighting for our rights and the rights of all Americans, which are on the line. This is so very, very sad. Any questions? Yeah. Such a terrible toll.
Today, we remember, with heavy hearts, the more than 1 million Americans who have died from COVID-19. Each of those lives matters. Each loss has left a family, a friend, a colleague behind. As Speaker Nancy Pelosi reminds us, this is a terrible toll and a solemn call to action. Lowering our flags isn't enough. We must honor these lives by acting with urgency and compassion. That means continuing to invest in testing, treatment, and vaccines to save lives and prepare for future variants. Democrats are fighting to make sure science, not politics, drives our public health response. We believe in protecting our communities, not scoring partisan points. And while we grieve, we also lead, supporting democracy abroad and at home. Pelosi highlighted our $40 billion bipartisan package to help Ukraine defend democracy against authoritarian aggression, showing once again that American leadership matters. Here at home, House Democrats are working to lower costs for working families, tackling corporate greed and price gouging at the pump. Oil companies are posting record profits while families struggle. That's why Democrats are taking action to stop exploitation and hold them accountable. We're also investing in American manufacturing through the Compits Act, creating jobs, strengthening supply chains, and rebuilding our economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Under President Biden's leadership, over 8 million jobs have already been created. Now, Democrats are pushing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act to connect even more Americans with good-paying jobs and help small businesses thrive. But our progress, our very freedoms, are under threat. The Supreme Court's draft opinion to overturn Roe v. Wade endangers the most fundamental right of women, the right to make decisions about their own bodies. Pelosi was clear, this is not just about abortion, it's about freedom, privacy, and equality. Republicans are pushing a dangerous, extremist agenda to criminalize reproductive health and strip away decades of progress. Democrats are standing firm. We will fight to defend Roe versus Wade. Wade to protect reproductive freedom and to expand rights, not restrict them. This weekend, as Americans gather to march and speak out, remember, the fight for freedom, fairness, and democracy is far from over. We mourn, we honor, and we move forward together. Because that's what Democrats do. We fight for people, for progress, and for the promise of America.